Hi, Pastor Nathan Deck with your hashtag Better Together devotion for today. I remember as a pastor going to a training event one time, and suddenly I was hugely convicted because the question was given, how many folks did you invite to church this week? And I couldn't think of a single one at the moment. And the pastor who was sitting next to me raised his hand and he says, well, I've invited folks several times. They've always said no, but I've invited folks several times. And it began a conversation where every time this church had an event, this pastor would invite the exact same family that lived next door to them to it. No matter how many times they said no, he continued inviting them. And what he shared with me was kind of, well, convicting. He said, well, what about that persistent widow parable? You know, there's a story in Jesus tells of a widow who's persistent to an unjust judge, a judge who doesn't fear God, who doesn't care about the law. And the widow keeps coming to this judge over and over and over again, presenting her case over and over again. And the judge says, Lord, this woman's going to talk my ear to death unless I finally just rule in her favor. So I guess I will. That's kind of what it's like sometimes with our invitations. Our invitations don't need to be a hammer. They need to be soft. But they need to be invitations consistently and persistently. Pray and invite. Pray and continue to invite. You never know when someone might finally say, well, you know what? They're just going to invite me next month again. I'll go ahead and say yes this month. And when they do, my prayer is that they encounter a warm hospitality and a place of love. I can't tell you how many times that as a pastor I've seen people suddenly find an avenue into church because someone took the time to be persistent and invite and invite and invite again and again and again. When we as churches have events, by the way, just a segue there, we should always end them with an invitation to the next event, to the next small group, to the next encounter. I mean, isn't that what you normally do when you go to like the Rotary Club or something else? They tell you, oh, and don't forget our next meeting is blah, 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 blah. We should always have an invitation attached to every single event. That way that there's a pattern. You know, if folks get in the habit of coming to church 3 times in a row, more than likely that fourth Sunday, you're going to have them there right there having a great time worshiping because they've bought in, they have invested the time into it, and they have created it as a habit. A lot of folks, especially the young folks, after the pandemic didn't come back to church because they got out of the habit. It just wasn't a part of their priority. And honestly, some of them said, you know, I just don't see the need anymore. Well, there is a need for their spiritual health. So go and invite them. And when they say no, go, that's okay. And the next time, invite them again and again and again. You'll find that we'll be better together if we all continually invite one another to the feast. Amen.